Did you hear what he said like yesterday or a couple days ago?
We didn't have enough airports.
If you had any other job and you were talking like that,
yeah,
they would go, "Hey, you're done."
If you talk,
oh no,
for the record,
is that fake?
It's not fake.
He was talking about somebody else.
Trump saying that.
He's such a good conversationalist. I almost wish he did like debate or political stuff. He's such a good conversationalist. It's unbelievable. Kanye shows up, and obviously it's Kanye West, right? I'm going to be honest. I might have.
I don't know how effective cancel culture is anymore. We torpedoed that.
What is this?
Did you see that video? There's a video that was going around today of people in Chicago that are furious that the government is giving so much money to all of these immigrants that have illegally migrated into Chicago.
No, I didn't see that.
They're giving them cell phone and $1,200 whatever it is, and these people are freaking out.
Yeah.
And these people that were Democrats are like, hey, if Trump wants to talk to us, come talk to us. Like, we're tired of this shit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, this is wild to see. These people are waking up. Like, why are you giving people that aren't even from here all this money and a free phone and all this shit? You're not giving anything to us?
That is fucked. It's like, I think those people deserve, but that's like we're seeing this like, why aren't regular people getting that same shit? Why doesn't everybody just get that? Why is that person getting special treatment where it's like we're just fucked? I mean, that's the safety net.
They
shit.
shouldn't get it either. What they're doing is they're trying to buy votes. That's what I think they're doing. They're trying to get rid of voter ID, and they're trying to bring people in or allow people to get in and make it easy for them to travel all around the country. And if someone like let you in the country, wouldn't you vote for them?
But they can't vote, can they?
Well, what if they can?
But
they're talking about not having voter ID.
But you have
what do you think that they were talking about it in New York? They were going to try to make it so that if you weren't a citizen, you could still vote in New York.
Interesting.
That was something that was discussed, right?
I don't know, because my dad
Google
can't
that thing
vote.
about New York.
I think it was discussed, but I don't know that's
attempts to have people that were immigrants capable of voting in New York, whatever you would search it under. But
my dad straight can't vote, and he's been here, 40 years or 50, 40 something.
If they start changing things, look, why else would you want that many people to cross over? I would want those people to cross over if I wanted one of two things. I wanted chaos, or B, I wanted voters. Yeah. It's like that's what Wild Country did.
Is this like the journey of like every person that turns conservative? Is there like a group of beliefs that you always combine it? Because like I remember my parents telling me this when I was a kid, right? That illegal immigrants are being shipped over by buses by Democrats to go and vote. Is this just like a thing you just kind of have to believe as you get older, or?
Yeah.
It's the same kind of deal.
But also,
here.
Oh, yeah.
Struck down. Okay. State Supreme Court judge from Staten Island said, click on it so I can read it. So, State Supreme Court judge from Staten Island said the measure, which would have allowed more than 800,000 non-citizens to vote, violated the state constitution. So, they're trying to pass this measure. Imagine what would be the motivation? What would be the motivation of allowing people that are illegal aliens?
Well, they're permanent legal residents.
Permanent legal residents.
So they're basically like guys like my dad who've been
So these are just people that are not American citizens.
Yeah. Somebody with their green. I mean, some people never. Like
That's
I said,
they're a permanent resident. Permanent resident is a green card holder, and then from residency, after some level, 3 to 5 years, you can apply for citizenship. Is what they're talking about.
That is ever going to become a citizen.
Also only applied to local.
So non-citizens, what's the technical term for a non-citizen? If you're not a citizen,
isn't it a resident?
You're here.
Illegal resident.
Illegal resident.
No, legal.
Legal. Yeah. So do you have a green card?
Yeah, green card.
That's forever? That's what a legal resident is, and I'm pretty sure you can indefinitely maintain a green card. I don't think you have to apply for citizenship, right?
Like, or does it expire?
Age and residency requirements.
Age and residency requirements.
Yeah, so it's like, I mean, look, you could debate that, but it's not the same as illegal immigrants. It's like people, it's basically people that have been in that place and they don't want to become citizens. They could be able to vote for municipal elections, not national elections.
But if you're a Democrat or if you're a Republican, let's see it on the other side. Imagine you're a Republican and you do this and you say, we're going to let people who aren't even citizens vote. Who do you think those people are going to vote for? They're going to vote for the people that are allowing them to vote.
Yeah.
That's such a reductionist take. I don't think any fucking like policy ever works that simply. Like, I just do this one thing. I get all of their votes. Like, bro. Destiny, do you think non-citizens should vote at any level? School councils, for instance, at the federal level, non-citizens are counted to determine the way that reps in the House are divided, but obviously can't vote. I mean, if you're being calculated for representatives of the House, you should be able to vote. I don't know. I don't talk about that much because I think it's annoyingly divisive, but I think there are strong arguments for illegals being able to vote in certain types of elections based on what their status is in a particular community. Like if you're an illegal citizen of the United States, but if you live in a local community, if you own a house and you're paying property taxes, and if your kid is going to a school under DACA on a legal name, like the idea that you can't vote for like the school superintendent, that's kind of weird. You're paying your taxes. You might be paying taxes from a job and from your property taxes that go to the school. You're sending your kid to school. You're supporting like the fact that you can't. Yeah, I think there are strong arguments in that direction, but voting and everything is fucking AIDS. And 90% of the people that have strong opinions on it don't vote anyway, so it's just fucking cringe.
Just especially if you're not politically savvy. Now,
it is kind of like the
imagine
old, it's like Tammany Hall, like in Gangs of New York, where it's like you vote like 4 times and then
Right.
just bring the fucking Irish people off the boats and like shave your mustache and go vote again, like that kind of shit.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of that.
Well, that's the old, yeah, that's how it always used to be.
That's how they always did it. But the thing is, it's like if you wanted the laws on voting to be more lax, and you wanted citizens that are here, but they're not legal. They're not
right.
You could
or legal.
or not legal.
Or not, yeah,
that's
yeah.
next.
I don't think you'd be able to get anybody to fucking go.
How
for
are
that.
you trying to get people to vote for someone who's not a citizen voting?
Well,
that's always been the thing. Like you cannot vote if you're not a citizen.
I guess just reading off that, right? I don't know anything else. That to me, I don't know that I would have to think about it, but it's like what they're saying is if you've been here a while, you're a legal resident, you're part of this community, you pay taxes, you do all that stuff. You can vote in local municipal elections. You can't vote for fucking senator. You can't vote for fucking president. You can vote for alderman. You can vote for fucking state house representative because they directly affect your thing, which is at least a reasonable argument as opposed to a non-citizen can have the full legal protection.
I don't think you're either like a citizen or an illegal. I don't think people have like there's no difference in their brain or there's no like gradient between those, I think. What allows that cross into ability to vote threshold? Is it the taxes? Generally curious. I mean, if you're making some investment in a community and you live there, and then you're directly impacted by the rules and regulations, it's interesting to think that you might still have no voice or no say in how those things are ran. I think that's an interesting thing to think about. Like, technically, that's kind of sort of what caused like the American Revolutionary War, right? Where people that had no representation in a certain political body, but were still subject to the rules and regulations thereof. Not to say it's 1-to-1, but like, here's another one.
Oh, there's people that voted for Biden that are doing it now. They're like, what did I do?
Right.
Like, what did I choose? Like, how is this guy?
Yeah, you just can't listen to an interview where he's saying some of the stuff he says that just makes no sense at all. It's like you can't listen to those interviews and feel like you made a good decision. I don't know how you could.
Did you hear what he said like yesterday or a couple days ago?
Mm-mm.
He was talking about the Revolutionary War. He's like, one of the reasons why we lost the Revolutionary War, one of the problems with the Revolutionary War was they didn't have enough airports.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
I saw that. It's like,
Have you seen
what
that?
the hell?
Like, pull him.
It's
Imagine
crazy.
If you had any other job and you were talking like that,
Yeah.
they would go, hey, you're done.
If you talk
Oh no.
like that to a doctor at your
Yeah.
medical exam to fight, they'd be
Yeah.
like, okay, like obviously you're not fighting. You would also, here's 8 weeks of being helped out by a professional, like
right. You might not ever do anything again.
No, it's it's one of the wildest things ever.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And the media gaslighting you to protect. It's just people are so afraid of Trump being in office and
Yeah.
Republicans being in office.
A few moments later.
Hanging out with the guy, I'm like, man.
Well, it's just the media narrative. I mean, so many people were fed this lie that the Russia collusion.
Yeah.
Was this?
Is this the video you're talking about?
Let me see what this one says. I don't think it is.
By the way, the same stable genius that said the biggest problem we had in the Revolutionary War is we didn't have enough airports.
Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah, that's it.
Whoa.
What?
Just for the record,
Is that fake?
it's not fake.
He was
but
talking about
he
somebody
was
else.
referencing Trump saying that.
Wait, did Trump actually say that?
Here's what Trump's saying it in 2019.
Oh.
Donald Trump said something about that. He didn't say Jesus. He said a stable genius, and that's where the transcription.
Let me hear what it says. What did he say?
In June of 1775, the Continental Congress created a unified army out of the revolutionary forces encamped around Boston and New York, and named after the great George Washington, Commander-in-Chief. The Continental Army suffered a bitter winter of Valley Forge, found glory across the waters of the Delaware, and seized victory from Cornwallis of Yorktown. Our army manned the airport. It ran the ramparts. It took over the airports. It did everything it had to do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you
Well, I mean, like, well, okay, hold on. If Biden said it, the only possible explanation is that Biden has dementia and his Alzheimer's addled brain just made it impossible for him to even think of what he was fucking talking. And he thought we were actually flying planes. But if Trump said it, I mean, like, maybe it was like a bad speechwriter on the teleprompter and he just wasn't sure and he read it and he just wasn't thinking. This guy's been traveling a lot, okay,
you fucked up.
Yeah, he did.
What's he gonna say? Hold on.
You can tell too. It sounds like a little different. He's like, you could tell he like messed up his words, but yeah. He was just, I don't know.
To go over the airports.
Well, that's the thing
funny.
about media these days. It's like,
right.
You
never
got to
know.
look into it.
Well,
COVID rotted his brain. It happened, bro. It was all the ivermectin he took when he got sick, I guess. Is the Joe Rogan subreddit, like, have they turned on Rogan or they're hate watchers? Eric had a really good question 2 or 3 days ago, but I think I was ending my stream and I didn't answer it. Eric asked a question of like, would you feel if Israel was utilizing weapon systems that had a less likelihood of being able to focus or target an attack and increase the amount of collateral damage, would that be unethical? I think the answer would probably be yes. And I could definitely see like, let's say that there's one military system or targeting system that's more expensive, but it's like more precise, but it also gives you less leeway then for war crimes because now if you up, now it's like way more likely that you're going to get dinged for something. And then there's another system that's like less precise or more clustered or whatever. And if you use this, it does more damage, it's cheaper, but right? I'm sure there's a lot of calculations or complications in regards to evaluating the types of systems used and everything. I don't know if I would have strong feelings about any of that. But yeah, I mean, I can imagine at some point we're going to say that, it's probably unethical to choose to use this weapon system, right? Sure. But yeah, I'm not sure where I would draw those lines. I think I would need way more details on the on what exactly is being discussed, yeah.
Holding religious significance for both communities was to be an international city. These allocations aimed to distribute the land based on demographic and agricultural considerations, but significantly altered the existing territorial status quo, fueling tensions further. The Jewish leadership accepted the proposal, seeing it as a step toward an independent Jewish state. However, the Arab leadership rejected it outright, refusing to recognize any partition of the territory and the separation of its peoples. Seeing few other options, Jewish leaders declared independence in 1948, establishing the State of Israel.
Didn't Ligon say some shit about them using dumb bombs? I've never heard the term dumb bomb in my life. Dumb bomb is stupid. Dumb bomb doesn't make any sense. I don't know why you would ever call a bomb a dumb bomb. It's just a rocket. I don't know why we would ever. Yeah, that just sounds. I don't know where that term came from or why the New York Times made that article or whatever. Like, dumb bomb just means that there's no guidance system or navigation system on the bomb itself, but a dumb bomb can still be highly precise or highly targeted. There's going to be certain weapon systems that launch dumb bombs that are more precise than like guided weapons, smart bombs. Like it's just a stupid, I don't know. That's a dumb, that just sounds dumb. Rockets have a propulsion system. Oh, dumb bomb is just free falling. Oh, sure. Even a free falling or a launched bomb, like an artillery shell, can be guided with high levels of precision. It's just it's a stupid term. Or at the very least, it's dumb applied in this context. Like a dumb bomb is automatically horrible and bad compared to something else, you know?
Seeing few other options, Jewish leaders declared independence in 1948, establishing the State of Israel. This immediately triggered the Arab-Israeli War, as neighboring Arab states invaded to crush what they saw as a Zionist occupation. Despite the odds stacked against the Israeli defenders, the war ended in 1949 with an Israeli victory, establishing the Green Line as the de facto border for the new Jewish state. The Green Line expanded Israel's territory beyond the UN's proposed boundaries, incorporating Western Galilee and a broad corridor through the Negev desert. By the end.
Wait, okay, I might be missing things here. I'm sorry, or maybe they said it earlier when I was reading chat. I would argue that this is an incredibly pro-Zionist retelling of what happened here, right? That the odds were stacked against them. I don't know if the odds were ever stacked against Israel. They were shipping in lots of weapons from Czechoslovakia. All of the Israelis who were coming in from Europe they were clearly like military ready, and they had experience, and they were way more organized. They were getting a lot of money externally from other Zionist organizations. I'm pretty sure their fighting force in their military is way more capable than the surrounding Arab states. And also, there was no mention in here of like part of the reason why the Arab states invaded was probably also because of the huge expulsion of Palestinian Arabs from the land as well, right? Did I miss the Nakba mention in here? Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like I feel like this particular part, the retelling here, was very favorable towards the Jewish side. Arguably like bordering on, you're missing some important parts for the Arab side here, but...
End of the war, over 700,000 Palestinians had been permanently displaced from their homeland.
Oh, there it is, okay.
With many reduced...
Well...
Negev Desert. By the end of the war, over 700,000 Palestinians had been permanently displaced from their homeland. With
Sure. Some people would argue that this displacement began, though, in 47 before the war even happened, right? Was the Nakba before or after the war? I think people would probably argue the Nakba was like from 47 to 49, with some of it occurring prior to the war and then most of it occurring after. Although I heard one guy challenge me on that most of it happened before the war even happened. I don't think that's true, though. I wish I could find like precise numbers on when people left, but yeah.
Many reduced to the status of refugees. This event would be known as the Nakba.
The Nakba was a product of the war. I don't believe that's 100% true. I believe that after the 47 partition plan, once that was rejected, I believe that the Arab-Israeli civil war started, and that's when some of the expulsions began, prior to the 48 independence and prior to the actual first war. I'm pretty sure that's true. That's not correct, Destiny. The Arabs were very well trained, having fought in multiple conflicts under the Ottomans. I'm not a military expert and I don't know much about the military history, but just based on the little bit I know, that seems to be completely wrong. It feels like Arab states, even Egypt, had a very hard time organizing and running a military effectively. So I don't think that's true at all, but I could be wrong.
Or catastrophe by surviving Palestinians and the rest of the Arab world. Although hostilities ceased, the agreements didn't resolve the core conflict, merely pausing territorial disputes. From 1949 to 1967, the Gaza Strip was under Egyptian occupation and the West Bank under Jordanian occupation. The end of the war also saw Israel's alleged violation of the UN General Assembly Resolution 181, as it expanded beyond the UN's proposed boundaries, further souring relations with neighboring Arab states. Concurrently, border skirmishes, issues over the Straits of Tiran, and the 1956 Suez Crisis further exacerbated problems with the Arabs. Israel's probing into surrounding territories and retaliatory actions against cross-border attacks further strained relations in the region, setting the stage for June 5, 1967, when preemptive Israeli airstrikes against Egyptian airfields caused a coalition of Arab states to simultaneously declare war and attack Israel across multiple...
Okay, well now that's given like incredibly pro-Arab side that they just like Israel for no reason attacked a bunch of airfields. But
fronts. Despite being grossly outnumbered, Israel quickly launched an immediate offensive, capturing the Sinai Peninsula, Gaza Strip, West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Golan Heights at a lightning pace. The war concluded.
Also, the grossly outnumbered thing here also is, but that's also like massively pro-Israeli. I don't think that this video is like wrong. I wonder if you can give like a general overview of history while it's still like accurate. Like to say that they were grossly outnumbered is like kind of true, but like I think once you've eliminated all of the enemy air support, I don't know if the outnumbered shit matters, because if you have like free reign of the skies and you just call in planes, bomb the of everybody, and you have no contest there. And I'm pretty sure at this early stage in history, anti-air didn't really exist that well, or at least it wasn't deployed in these regions. Because remember, that was one of the scary things about Yom Kippur. The scary thing about Yom Kippur was Egypt, I think, having a ton of anti-air that was being set up in the Sinai deployed by the Soviets. And I think in the beginning stages of Yom Kippur, I'm pretty sure Israeli planes were getting murked like motherfuckers. They were getting shot down like crazy. So having like massive air superiority over every country, which the Israelis had, was probably was definitely super important. So to say they're like super outnumbered,
Peninsula, Gaza Strip, West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Golan Heights at a lightning...
It had a note on the screen. It said it was in response to closing the straits in the military on the border. Oh, okay, my bad. I just didn't read the note. My bad.
Pace. The war concluded on June 10th, marking...
Air superiority doesn't mean jack shit unless you have superior infantry. I don't know about that.
What we now know as the Six-Day War. These newly acquired territories significantly expanded Israel's borders, with the Green Line being superseded by the ceasefire lines established at the end of the conflict. From 1967 onwards, new Israeli settlements would be established across the occupied territories of Gaza and the West Bank, often encroaching on Palestinian land to do so. The aftermath of the Six-Day War left a lingering tension in the region, with the Arab states seeking to recover their territories lost to Israel. These tensions eventually sparked the Yom Kippur War in 1973, where Egypt and Syria launched coordinated surprise attacks against Israel to regain the Sinai Peninsula and the Golan Heights. However, by the end of the war, Israeli forces had repelled the invasions and even advanced into Egyptian and Syrian territories beyond the pre-war lines. Despite these territorial changes during the conflict, the borders essentially returned to their pre-war status following disengagement agreements in 1974 and 1975. Even with the memories of Yom Kippur still fresh, an unprecedented moment occurred in 1978 at Camp David in the United States. Here, agreements were signed between Egyptian President Anwar Sadat and Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin, which led to a peace treaty and normalized relations the following year. Part of this treaty involved Israel returning the Sinai Peninsula to Egypt, which was finalized in 1982. Meanwhile, Israeli military rule over the West Bank transitioned to a semi-civil authority under the Israeli Ministry of Defense. Since its establishment in 1964, the Palestine Liberation Organization gained significant influence in the region. Its pursuit for Palestinian self-determination led to the Arab League officially deeming them the sole legitimate representative of the Palestinian people in 1974. This recognition marked a pivotal moment.
I'm behind a few minutes, but it seems like when you say Lav says you lie in private, she actually means that you make her feel better and you're meaner in public, but she argues a ton on stream, or a lot on stream. that could be true. And honestly, I could see people having that opinion. I think that's a personal thing that I need to work on. Yeah, that's the thing that I need to work on. I need to figure that out. I think one flaw or defect I have, I'm really bad at like, here's like a weird contradiction I think that I have. I'm really bad at words of affirmation. Like if I see somebody and they do something, like my first instinct is to criticize, which is a bad habit. That was really unfair to Mel. Mel did a lot of like shows on Red Pill stuff where she did like pretty good when she went to debates, and when she would ask me like, oh, how do you think I did on this thing? My mind is like, oh, well, what could you do better, right? And so I'd just be critical. And I think that makes people feel like shit when they hear that. When I ask for somebody like, how did I do? I'm almost always soliciting critical feedback. Like, yeah, hey, like, what do you think? Can you tell me something I do better here? Blah, blah. Like, that's almost all I'm interested in. I'm very rarely am I interested in saying, oh, you did a good job. I just want to like, tell me what I can do better. It's usually what I'm looking for. But then when I'm talking about somebody else, when they're not around, so if I talk to them and they're not, if somebody else is bringing up their performance and that person's not there, then I will almost come off as like a simp. Because if people are bringing up like Melina, like I've done this on stream and in my subreddit, because Melina always say like, oh, you're always critical of me. And it's like, when I'm talking to you, I am, but like when I'm talking to my community or when I'm posting my subreddit or I'm talking in chats, I simp like crazy. No, I'll always like sing the praises of somebody like, no, I think this person did a good job here. No, I don't think that's fair to say this. Or no, yeah. I need to translate the third party energy to second party energy better. That's just like a thing that I need to work on, I think. Yeah, I think it's like a personal thing, yeah. It also depends on what you're critical of compared to the level of confidence in that thing. Sure. The rule is it's something they can improve on right now, then criticism is fine. If it's something they can't fix, don't criticize. I think the rule is you should, unless you have a partner that very specifically enjoys critical feedback, which is something I specifically do. I like the whiplash approach, right? Throw a chair at me, tell me I'm a loser. Sorry, I almost said another word. Yeah, and then like criticize me. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. That's the type of feedback I generally solicit. If your partner is a normal human being, like 98% of people, being able to compliment their work, or especially things they've like expended effort on, that's probably a really important part of a healthy relationship, like a functional relationship, I think. You should be able to do that. If you can't do that, that's like a character flaw that you need to work on, I think. Or find somebody that is like you, I guess, yeah. I had that exact same problem with my best friend in GF. What direction are you going to improve that? I try to be more mindful of it. It'd be nice for a relationship. If I'm dating somebody, I think I want somebody that's like more similar to me, but I still think I don't want to call it a character flaw, but it's something I work on. I try to. Like, I remember, for instance, after our debates in Texas, I think I wanted to criticize Erudite for something, or there was like something she could improve that would like help her so much. And my instinct was to say that immediately to her. But then I remembered, like, okay, this is gonna, if we just finish a debate and then I give her like a piece of criticism, it's just gonna be like me shitting on her. So I like try to think of like, oh, I think you did this really well, or this did good, or I think you had a really good argument here, blah, blah, blah. You should like consider this one thing, something, yeah. I think it's just good to consider that, because people are gonna, if you criticize them, they'll take the feelings that you hated everything they did. That's what most people think, right? If you do a musical performance and it's amazing and everybody's clapping and your friends are like, oh my God, just this one note, like in measure 47, like you always up the vibrato on this note because it's an awkward thing or whatever. What you hear is, I hated everything, and here's like one of the things I hated. That's what it feels like. So I think it's important to realize you have to do that better. Why do you think you do that? I don't know, because that's what I like to hear. We project, everybody projects. You see yourself in everybody, and then you just treat everybody like you think, yeah, you project your mental states and shit, yeah. How often do you give constructive feedback to a partner without being too critical? Well, I mean, I never try to be too critical. I make sure my feedback is always constructive. But even if your feedback is constructive, that doesn't matter. If you're only ever giving criticism, it feels like shit. It's not good. Having an explicit call for a postmortem of anything is good for people. Getting into the mindset of critique of both parties, just coming out and raw dogging criticism sets people up, sure. But even so, like, I just think criticism, even if it's really good criticism or really constructive, I think it just feels shitty. At Destiny, as a school teacher here in Norway, we usually apply the 2 compliments and a criticism to most schoolwork. We even get the kids to do it to each other. Yeah, that can help. There's also ways to do criticism as well that, now I know this from like a manager point of view, because of the stupid supervisor class we took at the casino. I don't know why I don't apply this to my personal life. I don't apply any of my advice. That's why my advice is so good. You know it's good because I don't take any of it. When you criticize somebody, rather than saying something they did wrong, if you can, it's really good to fixate on the thing they did good and try to amplify that over the wrongness. So this might be an example. Let's say somebody says like too much. I think I still say like too much even on stream. Let's say somebody says like too much when they're having a debate. Like, okay? rather than go in and like, what's the nicest way? Be like, listen, okay, generally everything sounds okay. If you could just cut down on the filler, you'd do so much better, right? Like that might be like a nice criticism. If you can amplify the good things and then use that to criticize the bad thing without criticizing it directly almost, it feels better. So if somebody says like too much and you go up to them and you're like, hey, when you speak, you are incredibly impactful. You have a lot of statements that carry a lot of weight behind them. But I think sometimes you undermine it a little bit by doing the likes. You should let your statements just hang. So say something and be silent, because everything you say is so good and your statements are so powerful. If you just stop the filler afterwards, I think it would be so much better for yourself, right? Because now you're fixating on your criticism has a compliment in it, right? Like you when you speak, it's really good. You're just doing like a little thing that kind of undermines it. If you can find ways to like amplify like a good thing, sometimes or focus on that kind of like as part of the criticism, I think that also makes the criticism feel better, rather than doing like the compliment sandwich thing where you're just like, you do this really well, you do this really well, and this you do horribly. Because even in the compliment sandwich, like that criticism could feel like shit, you know? I don't know. There's an art to giving constructive feedback to people. God, I bet Dr. K does it. I want to fucking kidnap and take his brain out and mine that brain for, information. He's such a good conversationalist. I almost wish he did like debate or political stuff. He's such a good conversationalist. It's unbelievable listening to him talk to people. He's just incredibly disarming.
Your reaction is joy.
Oh, because like that was such a cute, that was so cute. How that all wrapped up. I don't know if he's gonna go this way. At the end of the day, an emotion is elicited from Sneako, not the dopamine, not the wrecking, blah, blah, but like joy, because it was a human person, not God, it was a human person in a conversation that recognized something, and it elicited a response from Sneako.
I like connecting with people.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, with people. Yes.
Good?
Yeah.
Is this weakness?
Dr. K sets an unreasonable standard for what a therapist would sound like. I don't know if I've ever spoken in my entire life to somebody that can establish this much rapport this quickly with this level of pretty personal insight.
Hey, Dr. K.
He's like the best of both worlds of like of having an incredibly strong spine while being incredibly disarming at the same time. Usually you compromise on one of these two things. You're either like, you don't have enough, like for instance, you could criticize when I did the conservative debates 5 years ago that I was being a little bit too lenient to them while I was trying to be empathetic. So that'd be an example of like being a little bit like more soft and sacrificing your spine. Or in debating the lefties, you could argue that I had too much of a spine and I wasn't soft or empathetic enough. For some reason, like an erect, throbbing dick, where you've got the solid inner dick and then the soft skin on the outside, Dr. K just does a really good job at being so unbelievably soft and disarming while still like being really strong in what he believes. He's so good at navigating comments like that. Dr. K talks about not giving criticisms by just asking questions in this interview. Oh, fuck. I might start binging some of his stuff. Just to listen to him. I just want to hear him. I'm more interested in him navigating conversations with people that don't like. Listening to him talk to Sneako is so good. Holy shit.
Things I want to dive into here. I would love for you to finish your.
Wait. Let's finish this before we get on to this.
In the Palestinian struggle, as the PLO's influence began to extend into neighboring countries like Lebanon. This expansion contributed to Israel's 1982 Operation Peace for Galilee, initially aimed at expelling PLO forces from Lebanon. As the conflict rapidly escalated into an extended occupation of southern Lebanon, Israel established a security zone to thwart attacks, leading to intricate conflicts with Lebanese factions and the emergence of Hezbollah as a key political player in the region. This occupation, marked by its flagrant territorial violations, significantly impacted Israeli-Lebanese relations and the broader Middle Eastern geopolitical landscape. The Israeli presence in southern Lebanon continued for nearly 2 decades, marked by persistent military engagement.
Just him asking myself. He actually offered to reach out and chat with me off stream, which I appreciate over stuff. And the last part of our conversation was me asking him a few questions related to conversation stuff. Yeah. So I have a little bit. Yeah. But it'd be fun to have just like a 2-hour convo. I could talk to him so much about, he's just so good at talking. But one of the unfortunate things when I was speaking to him though, is some people are naturals at things. And unfortunately, I think he might be like a natural. So I don't know if, I'm more interested sometimes in people that aren't naturals and have to think a lot about how to get to a process. I'm like, okay, how do you do this? What do you do here? Because a lot of my questions for him are like literally like, when you've got something that's so against you and then you do this, like what is your thought process to here? And for him, he's like, oh, well, I just try not to be judgmental and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay. Like one of the things he said, oh, I just try to be compassionate. And it's like, you are compassionate, but a lot of times when people are compassionate, it comes off as condescending, but you don't. I've never heard Dr. K come off as like condescending or patronizing ever. He never comes off that way. I'm glazing hard. He's probably one of the best conversationalists I've heard, like speak to people in challenging areas on YouTube ever. It's just so good, yeah.
Its flagrant territorial violations significantly impacted Israeli-Lebanese relations and the broader Middle Eastern geopolitical landscape. The Israeli presence in southern Lebanon continued for nearly 2 decades, marked by persistent military engagements, political backlash, as well as international scrutiny.
Someone said he has so much experience it's a matter of practice. I disagree. I think therapists and talkers and teachers can go their whole life practicing and not hit whatever he's done to get his conversational skills where they're at. I don't think most people ever get there, even for people that practice like talking and therapy and everything. Yeah.
And criticism. The occupation would only end with Israel's unilateral withdrawal in 2000. However, this did not put an end to the PLO's activities within Israel and other parts of the region. The PLO's involvement in hijackings, attacks on civilians, and guerrilla warfare led countries like the United States and Israel to label it a terrorist organization during that period, though their reputation began to change over the late 1980s. The PLO's chairman, Yasser Arafat, alongside other Palestinian parties, became instrumental in setting the stage for the Oslo Accords, which aimed to transition toward more structured Palestinian self-governance and a potential two-state solution. Signed in 1993, the Oslo Accords established the Palestinian Authority.
But his education may not say too, he's Harvard trained. I don't think his Harvard training, I'm sure it helped a little bit, but he's got qualities that are unique to him. That I don't think you could pick up in a school anywhere. If Harvard could produce a bunch of people that could have conversations through residency, like at his level, we would see it. Like, yeah.
Granting it limited self-rule over parts of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip for a transitional period, with the aim of achieving a final peace settlement within 5 years. The Accords divided the West Bank into 3 areas: Area A, under full authority control; Area B, under Palestinian civil control and Israeli security control; and Area C, under full Israeli control. The Palestinian Authority was given control over most population centers in the West Bank and Gaza, while Israel retained control over Jewish settlements, military areas, and most of the natural resources. This arrangement was meant to be a stepping stone toward a two-state solution, although the subsequent Camp David negotiations in 2000 failed to establish a permanent settlement. The transitional period set by the Oslo Accords was complex, further exacerbated by the...
Yeah, I agree his style is natural. Another factor is his practice of mindfulness. Didn't he train to be a monk for years? I'm really curious how much that plays into it, for sure. Because there were a couple of Jesuits that I knew at Creighton Prep, my high school, that were also incredibly good conversationalists. That were so good. But I mean, I don't see that tested as much because it's like a high school format, so it's the relationships are different there. But yeah, I'm not sure. There might be some aspect of people that do religion or spirituality or mindfulness or meditation. There might be something in there that is like a part of the human mind that demands like exploration that we just don't get like in more secular settings. That might be the case, you know?
Second Intifada, a major Palestinian uprising from 2000 to 2005 following the failed Camp David negotiations. In 2005, shortly after the suppression of the uprising, Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon took a unilateral step to withdraw from the Gaza Strip. This evacuation involved dismantling all Israeli settlements in the Gaza Strip and 4 in the northern West Bank. The disengagement was aimed at improving Israeli security, reducing friction between Israelis and Palestinians, and advancing the peace process. But Israel still retained control over Gaza's airspace, territorial waters, and border crossings, except for the land border with Egypt, which is controlled by Egypt and the Palestinian Authority.
Fuck, I don't want to get into the comparison too much, but do you think that him being so good at combos might have played into why Max hated him so much? He was what he wanted to be. I'm not sure. I think Max hated him for other reasons, like with this weird savior complex. He's got actually a whole history of this. But it is funny that Max and Dr. K are a flip side of something that seems similar, but they're actually completely opposite. And it's really funny because Max levied this criticism at Dr. K that basically what Dr. K does is he gets you in a convo, gets you to cry, and then makes you feel good afterwards. And that'll always make you feel good. Which is 50% true, but Max is actually describing his own behavior. Dr. K, I think, asks you good questions to get you to reflect on things that you don't normally reflect on. Sometimes it can make you kind of uncomfortable because people don't usually show the care or concern to ask questions to get this deep, to make you confront something that's a little bit uncomfortable. And then you can have a moment and he'll let you have that moment and then you wrap up the conversation or then you finish afterwards. That is like a thing that I've seen happen in a lot of Dr. K conversations. What Max does though is Max will push you into a corner, make you very uncomfortable. He'll hit a boundary, push, step into your zone, make you incredibly uncomfortable. And then you end up breaking down. And then Max will ease up off the gas afterwards and let you kind of catch your breath. And now you feel like a little bit more endearing towards him because you had that vulnerable moment or whatever. But the vulnerable moments that Max pushes out of people, I think comes from a violation of boundaries and comes from a very subtle manipulation of conversation and flow and frame. And Dr. K's like vulnerable moments come from like just, I would say, like legitimate questioning and the person kind of like thinking or getting to areas that normally they might not ask questions about. That's my feeling. You never heard the memes about Dr. K making you cry? Oh yeah, I mean, I've seen it before, sure. But okay. Do you think that's why Ragepope preferred to Dr. K over other therapists? Possibly. Dr. K just needs to talk to Israel and Palestinians. Problem solved. True. Personally, I think one of the big things for him for being genuinely open-minded to others is based in being genuinely humbled by failing in some part of life. Oh, for Dr. K, maybe. Dr. K also comes off as just like very humble. Like one of the biggest things that I like what he's doing is I really like the fact that he's willing to, this might even be manipulative. And if it is, it worked on me, manipulated me. When he says like, give me a moment to think, the idea that like he did his residency at Harvard. I just learned this a week ago or when I talked to him on stream. I didn't actually remember, I didn't know he was a doctor. I thought that he just had like some training as a therapist. I didn't know he was an actual full-on psychiatrist. So he went to med school and I had no idea. I didn't know that actually. But I guess that makes sense. He's called Dr. K. I thought it was like a meme name. Yeah, like the fact that somebody would like, yeah. I try to have like moments of humility where if people ask me things, I'll be like, I don't know the answer to this. Like, I'm okay. I'm comfortable saying that. I'm comfortable saying I don't know something. And I like that he's comfortable being like, give me a moment to think about this, rather than feeling like a pressure to constantly speak or a pressure to constantly, you know, have the answers to everything immediately and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah. Didn't Max accuse him of not going to Harvard? Yeah, and I think I even bit that initially. Like I agreed with that criticism because he didn't go to Harvard. He did his residency at Harvard. But actually, I'm pretty sure if you think about it, getting an undergrad at Harvard is probably nowhere near as prestigious as doing a residency at Harvard, right? Because residency is like you're doing med school, and then this is where you go to get your formal training to complete your med school training. Undergrad is who the fuck cares? You have enough money, you can go to Harvard and get an undergrad degree. If your parents are rich or whatever. Who the fuck cares? Undergrad or Harvard? I mean, it's nice. I guess it's prestigious. But like doing residency at Harvard is probably a lot more prestigious. That'd be my guess. If you talk to like medical professionals, you do residency at Harvard? Impressive. Yeah. How would you address the criticisms of him for Indian astrology shit? I don't know. Not to get too into things. I don't know what he's comfortable sharing or not, but I might dive into some of that soon. I'm very curious. Only because I respect him so much that I'm curious like what is beyond that door. Not sure. Do you ever struggle to moderate your Vyvanse script? No, thank God. I mentioned this a while ago. I finally got my prescription at a psychiatrist. I just take 60 a day. I've done that for like 2 months or a month and a half, and I'm vibing hard. What is this? 12:23. Wait, is this yesterday or is this today? What does 12:39:33:04 look like? Is this an IP address? What the fuck is this? It's the only thing I really dislike about his work, but I don't know if it's because I'm a huge neckbeard atheist. I really struggle connecting to anything spiritual. Maybe, but if like the spirituality thing, date and timestamp. If the spirituality thing is what's unlocked his ability to do what he does as well as he does, I mean, like, fuck it, I'm curious. I'm at least curious, yeah. Do you think these are natty gains? Are we doing a natty or not analysis on this? Dude, we should just do like months where we like find topics to trigger the at people. Where we just like do natty or not, and we just say like the most retarded things to trigger the whole like weightlifting community. Oh fuck, who joined?
Hey, it's
you want to do Israel Palestine shit? Yeah, what's up?
Yeah, all right. So I think overall you've done a really good job. You're definitely the best online. That debate was
Obviously,
very good.
Of course.
Yeah.
Nice sandwich. Give me the criticism. What do you want?
Yeah. All right. So I guess I have 4 areas I'd kind of like to explore. I don't know if I really have great answers. I'm happy to give you mine after we hear yours. But so the first one is, I guess, where do you really draw the line for self-defense for nations, right? So when you take a look at Palestine and the formation of Israel and the war in 48 and the war in 67 and then 73 and so on, it's pretty clear to me that, 48, 67, and I think you agree, were very, very justifiable campaigns. But I don't think in current day we would agree, or I think we would both agree that there is no like retribution for Palestine to be able to take back all of Israel. So I guess how do you draw that line?
Can you, real quick, hold on. What do you do for work? Don't you make money? You're online every fucking day. Why does your mic blip like this? Can you tell me what microphone you're using?
I have an Apogee hype mic.
Why? Why not just buy like one of the normal mics that work? You've been in this Discord for months, years. You always have
if you link it to me, I'll buy it. Yeah. So this one I was able to get from work because it was a USB mic. I figured it was like a $300 mic. It would actually just work.
Aren't you always in comp size saying your TC is like $300K a year? Why don't you just buy like a Blue Yeti, $100 like USB mic? I don't understand.
Right, I'll buy the Blue Yeti.
Okay, thank you.
Put that on
Christ,
my
fuck
right
me,
now.
holy shit. Okay. You were asking me, what do I think about like nations defending themselves? What was the final question here?
Yeah, so I guess like where do you finally draw the line of self-defense for nations, right? Like what date did Palestine kind of lose their right to try to reclaim their territory from Israel, and why is that the case?
Here's the issue that I run into. Okay, all right, are you ready? I'm gonna be a rambler. I'm gonna try to get through this really quickly. Okay, ready?
Yep.
Okay. Individual morality, I think we can make principles. And the reason why we have principles is because it's a principle, it's applied to every situation, right? Principles only make sense if they're applied universally. So we can do this universally, individually, when it comes from person to person, right? I think I can always, there are certain things I can say, rape is always wrong. Murder is always wrong, okay? You shouldn't non-consensually violate another person's bodily autonomy so much that you're raping them or murdering them, right? These are like principles that I can extend to almost the entire world, I think, to most humans, assuming they're human, okay? Conflicts between conflicts within a nation over territory are going to be administered and finally resolved by your nation's government. They have to be. It's the only way a country works is if there's some central governing body that you can appeal to in order to make a particular thing work, right? That's the principle. We've got not third parties. We have institutions that we have like endowed with some power and we trust them to do things, right? So maybe we disagree. Maybe I think I'm even morally right that I should get to keep this house, my great, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, the government makes a final call, and that's how it has to work for us to be able to resolve disagreement between citizens in a country, okay, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, the confusing part is when we get to inter or intranational conflict, so nations are part of a greater body or nations fighting within themselves or amongst themselves, we get into weirder areas because now we're fighting over abstract things like territory. And these things are not administered to by a single body, but rather are disputed by two competing bodies. So it's very hard now because now we're dealing with abstract ethics and morals that are codified in laws between two separate nations that are having disagreements between themselves. So there's no central body that we can appeal to, which is still okay. We can still start to draw rules up, okay? But now the problem is any rule or principle we think of, when we try to universalize it, it's weird because for Israel-Palestine, my understanding is I don't think there is a conflict that is like this in the past 100 years of the world. So I can't think of any principle that I would retroactively apply to any other country to see what I expect them to do the same thing. So it feels like any rule we craft is going to be literally unique and handmade for this particular situation. So I don't know, like, when we say like what's right or wrong, like were they right in fighting back in 48? I mean, I feel they were. In 67, yeah, I can get it, I think still. In 73, it gets harder. You're like a whole generation removed from the original conflict. I think even in 67, there are questions. And then past 73, especially once other nations start to make agreements, you're way out of line at this point, I would say. But if you're going to try to like universalize a 20-year rule here, like I don't think I would apply that 20-year rule to Crimea and Russia and Ukraine, for instance. If tomorrow the war ends, a peace agreement is made, and Russia and Ukraine declare themselves as no longer at war with one another, if Ukraine tried to invade the next day, I would say that's unethical. You're done. You've settled the conflict. It's over. You don't get 20 years to fight. You don't get 50 years. You don't get 5 days. Like you're just done, you know?
Interesting. I think on that front, I would still think I kind of have the opposite opinion towards the end. I think Ukraine would still be justified in, 5 years, 10 years from now, going out and trying to reclaim the Donbass. I think the big delineating line for me, at least in the Israel-Palestinian conflict, was the switch, I guess, from conventional state actors fighting each other in militaries and kind of the international campaign of terror that went on. So the targeting, I guess, of Israelis and Jews overseas.
Well, wait.
And
real quick, before we do the Israel-Palestine stuff, I'm just curious on the Russia stuff. So here's my question, okay? When I think of like universalized principles, I'm trying to think of like where does this, like what does it look like when it plays out? The reason why I feel like Ukraine wouldn't be right to fight for Russia is at that point, aren't all peace treaties essentially negated or nullified? Like any peace treaty you sign, they can still invade you and take shit back. Aren't you setting yourself up for these things to become essentially meaningless?
Yes, but I guess from that perspective as well, you're just setting it up that stronger people can always force people to sign a peace deal and then have it be cemented in there forever.
Well, I agree. I think that's shitty on an ethical level, But on a real level, that's just true. I think it's important to recognize the real over the ethical or idealistic, because then on the real, that's why we have things like NATO, the European Union. I don't think BRICS is military, but like, yeah, that's why those things are so important, right? It's because you have to recognize that will happen. Larger countries will bully you, take your shit, and that's why we need to have these alliances and huge international bodies.
I totally agree. But I guess the point is, from a real perspective, is if Ukraine ends up being stronger than Russia in 5 or 10 years, I wouldn't have any opposition to them trying to reclaim the territory that's theirs, in terms of a balance of power thing. But I think it's more important to have these large, stable alliances so that these conflicts just don't begin in the first place.
Sure.
If Ukraine was part of NATO, then I don't think that this invasion would have happened. But that's kind of like a hindsight.
I can kind of agree with you. Yeah, but I don't think I don't think Ukraine could fight over it. That would just be. Well, here's a question then. What could you theoretically argue that Russia can fight over Ukraine if it was part of the former Soviet Union? It's not like they wanted to collapse.
So I would say no. I think the reasons why I would kind of separate them out is I don't think Ukraine was ever really part of Russia. I think since kind of the split of Ukraine with Lithuania and Russia, I believe, are the two powers that carved it up. I think they've really just been kind of an administered territory as opposed to...
Hold on. That's tomato. These are not administered territories. Like the Baltics hated Russia so much because they literally were replacing governments with like Soviet like politicians and shit, no?
No, correct. Yes. Yeah. I mean, these were, I don't even know what you would call it, but that's just basically occupied territory where you're putting your own government. It's the same thing that the colonialism happened overseas, where we did, or I guess Britain did it all around the world. France did it all around the world. Russia was doing the same thing in Eastern Europe. They were doing the same thing in Ukraine, the same thing in the Baltics. And that's why I wouldn't really consider them
I feel like Russification. I feel like Russification changes it a bit, though, right? Like the Brits and the French didn't really ever. And I could be wrong. Okay, I don't know this part of history, but I don't think the Brits and the French ever shipped off millions of their citizens to go and live like in Algeria or South Africa, right? They weren't shipping off so many people to do it. Whereas Russia literally was replacing like large swaths of population in order to make them ethically. That's why Crimea is so heavily ethnically Russian, right?
Yes, but I guess I don't think that gives you rights to the territory just because you genocide all the natives there
not Algeria,
and take over it. Yeah.
Or wait. Sorry, go ahead.
So, yeah. Oh, sorry. But yeah, I don't think that necessarily if you go and you genocide.
No, wait. I'm sorry. Wait. Hold on. I'm so sorry. Hold this point. 1 sec. I'm sorry. Wait. I was right for Algeria. That was the place. Wait. How many people did France ship to live in Algeria? Hold on. I need to find this.
I can look that up. I guess Haiti might have been a better one, where they were shipping people there and then the Haitians just genocided them all. It looks like a couple 100,000.
Okay, because everybody is saying that they did ship millions of people there. My understanding is that like I'm not talking about like just like a couple 100,000. Although that would be more than I even. No, that would probably be bad because I know you have to ship people off there to like administer the territory and hold on to it and like work all the whatever bullshit. But like my understanding for Russification, Russia was not shipping people just to like administer to or lead the territories. Russia was shipping citizens to like populate and have like demographic control over territories. That's my understanding. That in terms of like Russification, especially post Holodomor. That's my understanding. I could be wrong on the numbers, maybe not, but that was my understanding. Russification was an aggressive, like ethnic replacement in some areas for people. It wasn't just like just military people or just or just administrators. But I could be wrong because I haven't studied this as heavily. But okay, sorry. Go ahead on Israel Palestine. My bad.
Yeah. So Israel Palestine. Okay. So I guess I don't know if you wanted to address this or not, but so I guess my delineation on the conflict where it starts becoming less justified was when it switched between conflict between state actors, so the organized militaries of the Arab armies, to kind of like the international campaign of terror, where it was no longer two nations in conflict, but rather, I don't know really what you want to call them, but like just the general terror attacks on Jews and Israelis all around the world, where it was just a terror campaign instead of like some sort of like direct conflict between nations.
You think that changes it somehow?
Yeah, I think so. I think when you have, I think if you want to have any sort of legitimacy and continuation of like a conflict or interest, you have to have some level of like sustained effort on the state's part, right? So it's to kind of use like a property example is if you allow your neighbor to like build a garden in your property and then they maintain that garden for like 10 or 20 years, they kind of take that over from you because you're not directly in conflict with them. And so
well, wait, hold on. Isn't this my argument for why Russia or why Ukraine can't fight for Crimea like 50 years later or something? Or what's the difference between the argument you're making now and that argument that I'm...
Well, I think it's because as long as Ukraine, the state, is continuing to fight and amass resources towards that fight, I think it's legitimate. But because they're no longer pressing from a state level or have zero capacity and zero or to continue the fight, that because the fight has shifted to the international terrorism, it's no longer like, I don't want, this is probably terrible words, but like it's not like official. So it's not like a real state fighting back. It's just some crazy organizations that are trying to continue on with like whatever the rightful claim that's been abandoned by the Palestinian state.
Okay. Also, does any part of your calculation here, is it factored into the fact that Israel has engaged since basically, I think maybe before the founding of the nation, in international terrorism, arguably as well? So things like the Lavon affair, which is where I think they planned to bomb a couple buses in Egypt. It happened in Iraq. I don't remember where I think they were tried to bomb a couple things. And then Mossad will do assassinations of people that they believe are leaders of enemy forces around the world. Or when Israel flies planes to go and bomb potential nuclear reactors, set it up in Syria. I don't know if they went to Iran or not, but I know they did in Syria at least once.
Yeah, so that was the last point I was going to bring up is just the insane targeted killing campaigns that went on. But to kind of put that into perspective, you still have, I guess, these are political acts by the state making choices towards destroying what they think are valid military or political objectives. I think it gets super complicated and super messy when you have, the Lily Hammer affair. There was the Mossad started making I guess some decisions about who they were going to extrajudicially kill, and then covering up like massive internal failures, and you have like literal cabinet level officials just like lying and perjuring themselves on the stand. I think that's something that's very interesting to kind of talk about too. But I think on that point, it is actual state actors that are making the decision to go forward with these targeted killings, these bombing of these reactors, even if they're not directly related to the state itself making those decisions. It's in furtherance of the state by people who are legitimate participants of that state, as opposed to just kind of these splinter groups, right?
I don't understand what argument what is this furthering? What part of your argument?
So like if the CIA was to go around and just kill like, I don't know, 500 people in East Berlin or whatever, that's, even though it's just, these random killings of whatever, they're a part of the state apparatus, and they're the ones making decisions that this is going to further the interests of the state, the same way that the Department of Defense...
I understand what you're saying. You're giving me a bunch of descriptions. What argument is this supporting, or what are we talking about?
So because I think the Israel targeted killing stuff is a furtherance of the conflict by the state, whereas the Palestinian stuff was not. Was not any state actor trying to further the conflict. It was just other people that were taking up the mantle and trying to take up the claim of the territory that's rightfully held by the Palestinian state.
Okay, I don't understand how that's an argument, because I feel like unless you're literally tautologically just defining it, because there technically wasn't a state, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I understand there's not a state, but like there's very clearly like an organization that's responsible for administering kind of sort of to all the people in Palestine, and that the decisions and the killings were being done by people who weren't in that same kind of responsibility as a head of state. But you can kind of argue that there wasn't even really
Was it 70 when the PLO was formed and started representing Palestinians, kind of, or no?
I can get the exact date. I can pull up my notes. But
my understanding is that the PLO
said, they basically said that 60. We want to be the head, but I don't know how much they actually were the head versus they were just the only organized militia.
But they were the only organized anything, weren't they? Like every single other thing, like the PFLP and Fatah were all like subsidiaries of the PLO. Were there any other things that? And then also the PLO is what got the observer status at the UN later on for the Palestinian people as a country to the UN, right?
Yes, but I think that was just a political thing. I don't think that was any claim to legitimacy by the PLO. I think at the time of the 70s, it would have been Jordan in the West Bank and then Egypt and Gaza who would have whatever claim that there was to the continuation of the conflict. And I think that PLO, they just formed themselves to kind of take on a mantle because they felt like the current government wasn't representing them properly.
Well, there was no current government, was there?
Well, I mean, yeah, there was Jordan in the West Bank, and there was
yeah, but if they were formed in 64, this was in response probably to the. No, wait, 6-Day War was 67, right?
Yeah, here, hold on. I can pull my notes up.
67. Yeah, I mean, like, okay, I don't understand. So, are you arguing that? So, because they didn't have a formal state that had a formal government, that Palestine or that the PLO was able. I don't know what the argument is. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm not.
So I guess like the PLO was formed in 64.
Okay. Yeah, but I'm trying to figure out like what argument are we furthering here again?
Yeah.
Can you resend? Yeah.
So I don't think the PLO was a legitimate government or can be considered like even like a legitimate quasi-government to have claims of like the Palestinian people.
Sure, I understand that you said this, but I'm saying what argument is this furthering? That it's okay for them to do it, or Israel has more responsibility?
Well, no. That the Israel assassination campaign overseas was acts in furtherance of the state, as opposed to these, which are
I mean, what's that an argument of? Yeah, that it's acting for the state.
Just an argument of whether or not there remains a valid claim for Palestine to continue to attack Israel.
Okay,
like
and this is arguing that they don't have a valid claim because of this, or they do?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So there is
no. Wait, you can't be correct. I asked one or the other. Wait, what was the answer? Sorry.
Yes. Yeah. Correct. So there is no claim anymore because there is no continuation of the violence and conflict. It wasn't like fully, or it was settled, and then some.
Wait, what was the settling of it though? How did it ever get settled?
The settling was Jordan and Egypt taking over, and there being no state left to resist, and no resistance happening. Like just de facto, it was over.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know what any of those words mean. When you say de facto it was over, there were armistice lines drawn after 48
correct.
And after the 6-Day War, but it was de facto borders, but I don't think that the situation would have been considered resolved. And then Israel took some back. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think the Korean conflict is resolved?
I mean, for all intents and purposes, kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I think the same thing kind of happened in Palestine kind of at that point, and that's kind of the parallel that I would draw, even though there's no formal end to it. That's
but it's not even close to a parallel though, right? Are there huge groups of like North Koreans that are fighting against like South Koreans in this might happen. I'm totally fucking retarded. Does this happen anywhere in South Korea? Are there groups of like North Korean resistance fighters that are being administered to in occupied territories, or I don't think so, right?
No, I don't think so.
So I don't think it's comparable at all, right?
I think the reason why you don't have that is because these two people are ethnically the same, whereas for the Israel-Palestine conflict, they're ethnically not the same, I guess. There's still conflict that goes on a low level between the two nations, but the borders were established and the governments were divided at that point. And then the continuation of the fight was done by non-state actors, I guess, in the Palestine example. But like de facto, the war was over in the 50s in Korea, and it was over in 73 because you no longer have any state participation in any of it anymore. It's just rogue terrorist organizations.
Okay, if that's your case, then you're going to say that. Then that means that in 73, Israel should have annexed formally the West Bank and the Gaza Strip and made them all citizens. No? If there's no other state to be fighting with,
or expelled them, but yes, yeah,
sure. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think it's really a satisfactory answer that I have there either. Just to be clear, but that's just kind of one thing I wanted to look into with you. So
okay,
all right. So on the second one, I guess you are very much against the Israeli settlements into the West Bank and Gaza, correct?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess what would be your prescription kind of for Israelis moving forward? One of the biggest ways kind of that or the only way that they've really been able to make any sort of progress since 1948 was kind of facts on the ground. Basically them going out, building towers, building these settlements, and then using those to either annex territory or to bring people to the negotiating table, like the settlements they were building in the Sinai. So what would be kind of your prescription there for Israelis to kind of do?
I think it's I don't think you can compare 1 to 1, the agreements they make with other states, because they're negotiating with other states that have territory where their people are living. With the Palestinians, they don't really have a place to live or a place to negotiate, right? I think the moral choice for Israel is to aggressively pursue and work on peace deals with the Palestinians. But I think right now Israel is more in their realpolitik mode, where they're just like trying to expand their territory.
Yeah. I think I agree that's what they're trying to do. I think that the only way they've been able to kind of figure out a settlement to the conflict is literally by building settlements and kicking Arabs out. I don't think they've been able to make progress in any other way. And so I think that's the reason why they continue. And if there's actual valid other paths towards settling the conflict, I think those would go away. That's just kind of my read on the situation.
That's possible. I think there are other solutions, but they're far more complicated and like internationally involve multiple parties and everything. This is probably the simplest one. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's shitty and pretty shitty to the Palestinians, but yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's extremely shitty. But all right, so third point. So I think there's this really interesting kind of unexplored territory through the conflict. I don't know, or I didn't hear you talk about it with anybody at all. But the backdrop of this is basically the Cold War. There's a little bit of it with the Soviet Union and Egypt. But you have a lot of these Palestinian organizations being supported by like the Baader Meinhof gang and, the Red Army in Japan and these other big socialist, Marxist, communist groups kind of around the world. I don't know if you had any kind of thoughts on how that might have impacted it. So,
about like global communist movements supporting the Palestinians?
Yeah, correct. And there's like no viewing of the conflict through any of the other realpolitik that was going on in the world, which it seemed to have ties into. But
I mean, I would just look at, I think probably the biggest aspect of communism that influenced all of this would probably be the Soviet Union's assistance to Arab states in general. I don't know if like the Japanese Red Army or whatever, like these smaller communist groups that were supporting smaller Palestinian groups, I don't know how much they mattered. I have read a couple of peripheral things saying that like Soviet era propaganda might have influenced it quite a bit. Like some of the terms that we used to talk about, like I think they argued the introduction of things like apartheid and genocide were like Soviet era propaganda. That wouldn't make sense though, because that would make sense. I don't know how true that is or not. These are just like peripheral things I've read, but yeah, I don't have strong opinions about this. But.
Yeah, I guess like just another example is kind of the KGB, I think, was responsible for training the PLO to like hijack planes or things of that nature. So it seems like there's just, I don't know, something missing in the history. I don't know what exactly it is, or if there's really anything there and you're grasping at straws, but at least kind of.
That might be the case. I heard was it after Yom Kippur? There was an allegation of a conspiracy that a couple people have mentioned, although I don't think there's any hard evidence, that I think it was in the Golan Heights. It was argued that it was possible that Israel had captured a few Soviet commanders that were like doing on the ground stuff, and that these people had been like quietly shipped back to the Soviet Union in exchange for some Jewish people being brought back. I don't remember. I feel like I read something like this, but I don't think any of that has ever been confirmed. I don't know how like wacky that is or not, but maybe.
Yeah, I think there's just like something weird for me that's just like kind of missing, because I mean you have the general Soviet support, but I don't think any of the other Soviet satellite states acted totally on their own, and I feel like there's just some sort of connection there and some sort of like proxy force direction by the Soviets and kind of exacerbating that conflict. And I'm just really curious, kind of, because after the Cold War ended, basically all support for Palestine more or less stopped from the other Arab states. So I'm just
after the Cold War ended.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like it was more after after Egypt chilled. I think I feel like everybody kind of started to stop caring.
Yeah, and I guess I just wonder how much of that is due to Soviet influence. I don't know. You talk with Benny Morris, and you might talk with some other historians. I don't know if they'll have any interesting or insightful takes on that, but I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
At least.
The Dark Device and Nismo Pro, thanks for the 5 good subs each. And then Destiny, start fighting with bottom feeders like Lav. Keep growing. Success is the best revenge. Wow, cool. Okay, so I got it.
Yeah, so I guess the last one is the targeted killing campaigns, right, from Israel overseas throughout the 70s, 80s, 90s. The assassination, I guess, of PLO leaders around the world kind of led to a lot of really bad incidents. So Lilyhammer is one of them. They were trying to assassinate, I think, Salome, and then they ended up just killing a Palestinian immigrant in front of his like pregnant fiance.
Okay.
It was kind of one of the bigger ones. I guess, how do you feel kind of about the morality of basically a parallel government structure operating inside of Israel to just kill people who they thought were enemies of the state?
I mean, isn't that relatively normal or no? Like, couldn't you
think
argue
it's
this is analogous to like what our CIA does? Like, we killed like Soleimani, right? Or we do drone strikes in Yemen, right? Obama got in a lot of trouble for that one American that got killed. I think that was Obama, right?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I know we did the same, and the Soviets did the same, but I guess there's some level of where do you draw the line of acceptability of just how much indirect conflict do these people need to be, and then what are your kind of obligations to these other states that you're killing them in, right? So in Sweden and Germany and France, like,
I have no idea. I mean, I feel like I feel like an obligation should be to at least notify the state or like work with the state. But also, I don't know. I don't know at all. Like, for instance, because I thought about this a bit, I truly don't know the answer at all. I'm in completely dark waters, right? The United States killed Soleimani in Iraq, right? Under Trump?
Correct.
We did that in an Iraqi airport. And I think Iraq was irritated because we didn't notify them of it, right?
Yep.
I don't know if that's true or not. It might be the case that there actually was some high level of coordination there going on between Iraq and the United States. But it might be that a country doesn't want to come out and say, hey, by the way, we are willing to work with the United States to assassinate people. So maybe they always publicly deny that. I don't know if that's the case, because these would be areas where if people wanted to allege conspiracies, these would be really high level operations that possibly only a few people would necessarily be privy to. And I could see that being like a thing that actually happens. I don't know. I'm completely alleging this with no evidence whatsoever, but it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. I don't know.
Yeah, and so I guess that would kind of expand to just kind of these extrajudicial killings in general. I know PISCO really pushes a lot towards like you need due process before you can, kill citizens overseas. And with the Israelis, it seems like the Mossad more or less had a green light, and they killed people extrajudiciously to the point where they were even like covering it up, like in trials in front of their own Supreme Court, with like all sorts of perjury through even like cabinet level officials.
Sure.
And so I think a lot of that history is a little bit scary. And I guess at what point that you were asking earlier is like, when does that start becoming like terrorism as well? So.
If we're getting into a real conversation over what is terrorism, I don't know. Was Pearl Harbor terrorism? I don't know. That's like a word that's so meaningless. I think we can talk about like whether something's justified or unjustified, but calling something terrorism that's a hard sell. I'm not sure. Like arguably, where the bombing campaigns that we did in Japan, the Tokyo firebombing campaigns, I feel like you could argue that almost by a stricter definition that those were terrorism, because I'm pretty sure our goal was actually to break the Japanese population's will to fight. Wasn't that one of the stated that like we want to terrorize these civilian populations to bring about a political change, which is about as like stringent a definition or strict a definition you get of terrorism as possible now. Go ahead.
I mean, I don't really know where to draw the line. I thought it was just another really interesting aspect that never got brought up with all the people that debated you with, because it seems like there's a lot of stuff that could be around these extrajudicial killings that Israel was absolutely in the wrong for, or could be construed to be in the wrong for, and have committed a lot of crimes, and that just never came up. So if you get another historian, it might be worth looking into.
But here's a question. Wait, right now, do you think that Ukraine is justified in fighting back against Russia?
Yes, absolutely. And, attacking people in Moscow and, their different ports, their different facilities all across Russia. Yes.
Sure. Yeah. Here's a question. I think at this point, I'm not 100% sure, maybe you follow this closer. I think at this point, isn't it basically most people are assuming that the Nord Stream 2 pipeline was done by a high-ranking, apparently, purportedly, without Zelensky's knowledge, but a high-ranking Ukrainian official. Do you think that was a justified attack, if that was the case?
I think that one's very difficult to answer, and I think it's kind of the same way with that, is where you have specific circumvention of what are supposed to be normal checks on use of state power, right?
You think that bombing energy infrastructure that could theoretically supply other people that are non-participants in military conflict?
I think that's justified. Yeah, I think that's justified, but I also think it would be within Ukraine's purview to say that that's an act of treason against the state, because the political damage that attack did wasn't worth the military, whatever tangible military gains are. But I think that's probably more of a Ukrainian question to answer for themselves than for us as the international community to say that that's not justified.
Well, I think that is super on the international community to contemplate as well, right? Like, let's say that there was a war going on. Let's say that Russia was supplying a high level of energy to China, and Ukraine decides that they can total war the fuck out of Russia, and they start bombing that sort of energy infrastructure. I think we can argue that there's a whole bunch of negative downstream effects that could happen if we're justifying outside country attacks on like shipping routes and stuff. No, like I feel like you get into really dark water really quickly, really hairy territory.
Yeah, I think so. But I guess what does retribution look like? Say we wanted to prosecute Ukraine for that. Would we hold the state?
No, fuck retribution. It would be a matter of like support. Like, as in, are we going to sort of dial back support if we feel like this is like within your arsenal?
Yeah, well, I guess the question is, would we say, all right, we're not going to dial back support as long as you get rid of this guy who did this attack on the pipeline? Or do we say we need more meaningful change within your government, right? Because if it is just that one rogue guy, you can put him in prison. Is that sufficient?
Well, I mean, it couldn't have been a rogue guy. It must have been at least like some department with, I mean, I would guess for an operation of this size, my guess would be like at least 50 people knew about it, if not more, depending on like how many, if you're getting like fake passports at ship, like everything, like, that'd be my guess. So that'd be my guess. I mean, like, to be truthful, Ukraine probably has quite a bit of leeway in terms of like how much could they fuck up and we would support them because it's Ukraine versus Russia. But like at some point, like if this was a hairier conflict, like where the sides were less clear, like I could see stuff like that being like a cause for dialing back support significantly, right?
Yeah, or if Germany was like at war with Denmark or something and needed that energy. Yeah.
Then we would significantly alter our perception based on it.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit scary when you have internal state actors not coordinating with each other for whatever the national position is. And when you have people who have the capability to do those actions and not follow what the overall state wants, I guess, because it then comes into a position of like, how do you even begin to say like, is this a state action? Is this not a state action? Do you just need to punish like that group of people who went out and violated or broke whatever the boundaries were? Well, or do you actually have to like come in and clean the state out?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think at some point we have to be careful for like, what do we consider a state action, right? Because there are going to be something, or not, I'm sorry, not even what we consider state action. What do we consider state responsibility? Right? If you're on the field of battle and a Ukrainian soldier, let's say like 3 Russians are trying to surrender and a couple Ukrainian soldiers walk up and they shoot and kill these people that are surrendering, and it's like clearly ICC defined war crime, blah, blah, blah. Like, do we hold Ukraine responsible for that? Probably not. But if there are higher level military ops that are being planned by people that are part of like military cabinets or part of the like actual elected or appointed infrastructure of Ukraine's military machine, well, now we're in a way different scenario where it's like, okay, hold on, you are responsible for this shit. This can't be happening. Yeah,
I totally agree. And I don't know. I don't know if there's a good answer of where you would draw the line of saying it's like part of the state versus the entire state is responsible. I think it's just a really hard one to me, or for me, because again, if the guy was operating outside of his bounds, that's one thing. But it could just be, the plausible deniability that Ukraine was that Zelensky signed off on it and then actually said, all right, but by the way, I'm going to throw you under the bus just so we can continue with the support. And I don't know if there's any way to get sufficient information on things like that. And you have to kind of
they would need to be like an open archive, like U.S. investigation or something, because that would be another conspiracy, because this is involving, it could theoretically involve very few actors, where basically somebody says, listen, we've got ops that we can run, and Zelensky's like, I don't want to hear about it. Good luck. And like, just make sure you're not killing civilians. And then it's like, boom. And that way, if something does, get uncovered, and it's like, oh, I don't know shit about it. Like, don't blame me. That's totally possible, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, or you could go even further and the CIA was the one who ran the op, and then they just asked the Ukraine people to take the fall for it. Like, there's so many ways that you could go, and you're never going to get any of the information that you need for that.
Sure, maybe,
any sort of reasonable amount of time. And I don't think any state would really even pass off the internal security information to demonstrate one way or another the way it truly happened. And so I think you just have to, shoot in the dark. So. Other than that, I think that's basically all the big things I wanted to talk about. I don't know if you had any questions or things that you wanted to, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah, not that I can think of at the moment.
All right, well.
Yeah, did you watch the Jank versus the other guy, the guy that was like insulting him a bunch, the Charles Murray, is that his name?
I saw the 3-minute video clip of him just kind of going on a moral high road against Jank. I didn't see the full interview, but I think a lot of those insults probably were kind of deserves on Cenk's end. I don't think it looks really great if you're in a conversation like that to kind of throw words like that, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think.
Oh, Charles Douglas. Sorry, maybe I fucked up. Douglas Murray. I don't know what the fuck's his name. My bad. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think in your conversation specifically with Cenk, one of the big things, at least for me, that was kind of a drawback was at the very beginning when you're trying to be cordial. It was really hard to kind of differentiate where you're agreeing and disagreeing on like solid factual grounds and where you're having arguments. And it comes off like you're being too soft. But then at the end, when you're in the yelling and screaming portion, it's very clear to me like where your points of contention are. And so in future conversations, if you're able to maintain the more agreeable tone, but more clearly delineate for the audience, I think you'd come off a little bit better. So.
Yeah, something that's annoying is, did you ever used to, wait, do you say how old you are ever, or no?
Yeah, I'm like early 30s.
Did you ever used to argue on forums?
Oh yeah, like, oh man.
Yeah, so like
on banned from a lot of places.
On forums on, what would it be, BSB? I don't remember these fucking boards, these forums, whatever. But like you could like quote reply to like parts of like things. Yeah, sometimes you'd run into people that when they debate you, they would just quote like one part of your post. And then in the next post, you could say like, hey, you didn't respond to this section. You're just like picking out one thing. I find that when you have real life arguments, it's weird because like I think with Cenk, I would make like 6 or 7 or 8 points and he wouldn't really respond to them. He'd just move on to the next thing. It was like, okay, well, do I just like reiterate the stuff he didn't respond to because that sounds weird? Or do I just respond to all the new stuff he said? Like that was a little bit frustrating. I don't know how to deal with that as much. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a little bit that I wasn't the moderator. I think the moderator did a good job at doing a little bit of pushback, but I think he could have been a little bit more on top of things to more specifically point out like, hey,
force people
you
to
said
answer
these
questions.
10 things.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just like the debate format, if it's the people who just rhetorically know that they don't want to fight on any of these points and it's easier to just pass on, like some of the conspiracy people that you debated. I think a lot of it kind of was just like optics where, I'm going to be wrong here. So if I say 20 other things, people are just going to remember the 20 things I say now, not the 19 things that I was wrong on in that last one. And I think that's very effective at controlling the conversation. So I guess pounding the table, so to speak, on those points might be a little bit more effective.
Yeah, I agree.
I thought you weren't going to talk to these like weird conspiracy people anymore, but it seemed like that conversation.
About the RT guy, Dan, or what was his name?
Was it the RT guy or was it the Irish Palestinian organization guy? Is that the same RT guy?
They emailed me and it was like European, and I'm like, oh, Europeans are cool. I didn't know that was going to go like that. I wouldn't have. I don't know how I should have. I could have vetted that harder. But also, like that Eli Hassel guy that emailed me was also like a small no-name dude with like a no-name channel. And my first conversation was okay with that the former UK Prime Minister guy, but then obviously he got me the Cenk combo, which was amazing. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know if you can have your assistant at least like screen the people that they're going to send or something, but that might be good in the future because I just feel like it was just a repeat of the Hinkle Haas. Nothing of value brought up. So
yeah, that was a weird thing. Is Hinkle like losing support from the Russian government, or what's going on with him? I noticed he got his girlfriend withdrawn.
His KGB wife.
Yeah.
Man, that was crazy. You get like your own KGB state bride, and then she leaves you. Like I don't know what happened there.
I'm so curious. Like I probably will never know, but I wish. I'm sorry. When I said prime minister, I didn't mean prime minister. I think it was like a foreign diplomat. I'm sorry. I think. My bad. I misspoke there. I'd be so curious to see like a full documentary on like his life. Like how the fuck did this guy go from like rich Hollywood kid dating like these beach babes and everything to like streaming on Twitch to like 20 people? Because remember, he was on like fucking like random Twitch panels and shit with us to like all this Russian support and the botted shit, and then being like a huge YouTuber to getting banned and then getting a KGB wife and like I don't know. It's just like so his journey has been like fucking wild.
Yeah, I think it kind of exemplifies, though, a lot of the, I guess, information operations going on against America, kind of like China, Russia, a lot of these places, I'm sure they do a lot of funding of a lot of people or a lot of ideas to kind of get Americans divided. And I'm super curious to see like,
Jackson Hinkle right now.
How much, support was there organically? How much of it was like him being contacted? Like, I think that would be a really interesting documentary, but I don't think we're going to get that for like 20 or 30 years. I'm sure, though, there's like a massive dossier on him somewhere in lately.
Absolutely, yeah. Damn.
Yeah. I'm just really curious, like all these political spaces online. I mean, you're getting a lot of support from Progressive Victory, obviously, through your campaigns and everything else. I think a lot of people are seeing the value in coming out and communicating directly to these smaller and medium groups of people, and how with a little bit of money, a little bit of bot support, you can make people kind of grow inorganically and get your message out there to people. Obviously, I don't think Progressive Victory is running you in the same way that Jackson Hinkle is, but I think there's a ton of money and a ton of value in these direct kind of communications you influencers are having directly with your audiences, and the way you're able to convert that to real world mobilization or other real world kind of political divides. So like Fuentes and Alex Jones and these people being able to go out and spread these conspiracy theories and having things happen in the real world. I think that this is kind of like a new microcosm we're going to see of real actors coming in to try to get their message out to people.
Maybe, yeah. I'm curious, do you think Fuentes is pretty much done, or?
I think that's kind of a hard question. I don't think Fuentes is done. He might be as large as he's going to be. But I don't think he's going to be done. And I still think that even with like 10,000 people watching you, his fans they might even be more rabid than your fans, right?
They're absolutely, it is the most rabid, because that's like specifically like they try to be rabid. Like that's the whole point of what they do, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't mean in terms of like going on the internet and astroturfing, but in terms of like being able to like go out and mobilize actual real world campaigns and actions. I think he still has massive amounts of influence, and I still think he can kind of have an outsized effect on politics, and probably will for the next 10 or 20 years until this whole populist phase hopefully phases out.
Oh, interesting. I super disagree. Didn't he not do AFPAC last year?
I think he didn't do AFPAC because he was on the Yeezy campaign, right?
Sure. I feel like, yeah, God, I feel like there were so many mistakes he made there. God, it was so fucking funny watching that.
I think he blew, I think that kind of torpedoed him, just from like an outsider perspective, is he hooked himself up to what everyone should have known was a losing campaign, and he got put in lose-lose situations because he wasn't in control. I think until that point, he was steering his own ship and his own destiny, and then he attached himself to a rocket which blew up.
Yeah. Wait, I'm so curious. Do you agree with my overall analysis of like what was happening, where that was headed, the big mistake? Basically, I felt like Nick probably started politics too early, was way too radical, said a bunch of wild, retarded, stupid shit, but that he was actually like trying to like, now all the racism is ironic racism, now all the Jew shit is ironic Jew shit. He tried to be like a little bit more mainstream, started doing AFPAC, started making connections with like mainstream politicians, and then Kanye shows up, and obviously it's Kanye West, right? I'm gonna be honest, I might have joined a Kanye West. Kanye West, why would I not? But that by doing that, he actually ended up rolling back the clock completely on like the more palatable image that he had presented his like America First as. It became like a hardcore Nazi appearing campaign because of the Kanye West shit. And then once that blew up, now he's like completely fucked because he's like outed himself as like an insane Nazi. Do you think, broadly speaking, do you think that trajectory was correct, or do you think I missed something big there?
I think there's two things that are kind of missing out of that, I guess, is I think one, he still can rebrand in the future. I don't think it's like totally over, but he's going to have to do a lot more work in the future, I guess, if that makes sense.
You really think he can rebrand after he's been associated with Donald Trump and Fuentes, and even Donald Trump disavowed him?
Give it 10 years. He's still very young. There's still, I think history is very short for a lot of these people.
Online shit, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, and then especially, I mean, even just looking at politicians, like Liz Cheney was kicked out of the Republican Party. I think 10 or 15 years ago, when you're looking at Dick Cheney as the vice president, that she's like, I don't want to say like heir apparent, but like she's very clearly a rising star of the Republican Party. If you take a look at all the crazy shit that Matt Gaetz has done, some of these other populist Republicans, there's like, it's like the memory of a goldfish almost. I don't know how much this is going to stick around. But then on the other hand, you do have some people who have these minor moments whose careers are just totally ruined because the internet's memory is forever. So I don't know if it's over, but if he can maintain his influence for the next 5 years, I think I'll have another shot at trying to revert to the mainstream. So,
well, I guess we'll find out, huh?
Yeah. I don't know how effective cancel culture is anymore. If I'm being totally honest, it seems like we torpedoed that at like lightning speed. It was super fast, super effective, and it seems like that's kind of over now. So
yeah, I think we've been talking about this for like a few years. I think I was saying that like eventually I think we're going to get kind of tired. This is probably going to roll back. And I think for the most part, I think it kind of has, except for like on the more extreme stuff. And now we're kind of hitting that rubber band phase that we've been saying is going to happen for like 5 years. So yeah, I think here we are.
Yeah. Dude, I'm just hoping this is the last populist election cycle. I don't know what 2028 looks like if it's Trump running again or DeSantis.
I just don't know where the Republican Party is going to be. Like, because yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, they have no way. They have no way of knowing where it's going to be themselves, I don't think. I think you're literally going to see a civil war if Trump wins, and you might see a spin-off, and then
well, if Trump runs, we still don't even know that, right?
I mean, he's winning. It doesn't matter if he's in jail tomorrow. I think the Democrats took way too long. All the prosecutors took way too long to
well, I'm not even talking about
cases.
that. I was talking about the Colorado shit, right? That 14th Amendment, Section 3 bullshit, right? Because Colorado Supreme Court said he can't be listed, and that's got to go to the Supreme Court in months, I would imagine, right? They have to rule on that before the election.
Yeah, when is the primary there?
I'm not even sure.
Okay.
We're still like several months from the primary, aren't we? Like 5 or 6 months?
Yeah.
Or when is first primary? 2024. Wait, what? The Republican presidential primary will kick off January 15th with the Iowa caucuses. Wait, am I retarded? Is it really that early?
I think Iowa's way early.
Oh, holy shit. I'm sorry. It's way, way, way earlier so January, February is still big months. I'm sorry. Damn. Holy shit. Okay. We're way early.
So it's March, I think, for Colorado. So I think it's going to have to go through. It's going to have to be shortcut. I think.
Holy shit. Wait, so we can't even. So ideally, the Supreme Court needs to rule on this before January 15th. But there's no way that's going to happen, right?
Correct. Yeah, I think the only time that they have to rule would be by March 15th, which is when the irreparable damage is done to Trump when he's not on the Colorado ballot.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, wouldn't there already be? Oh, well, because there's not going to be like an injunction or anything. He's going to be on the ballots for all these other things, right?
I think so. I don't know if there's lawsuits.
Actually,
in other
wait,
states
I don't
that
even
are
know
trying
if
to
this.
take
I'm
them out.
sorry. For the Colorado ballot thing, is that for the primary ballot or is that just for the general election ballot? Can they even rule on who goes on the primary ballot? Because
I would assume so. If you're not allowed to be fit to be president, I don't think you can be on a primary ballot. But I don't know. I don't know any.
Because it's all okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Hey, what's up, Caleb Hammer? Hey, Caleb, if you DM me on Twitter or some shit, if you want to chat, I would love to fight with you about owning homes. I'm so curious about that. Or just like on random financial shit, because I talk about finance stuff on here, because
Pisco says he's going to be on the ballot in Colorado, so I guess they really don't have to rule until they're getting ready to make the ballots for the national election. So.
Gotcha, yeah. Because it wouldn't surprise me for primary ballots, you could literally put dogs or cats or whatever, because it's just like it's privately run political parties or, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not an actual official state, whatever.
Yeah. But who knows, yeah.
Man, I think it's just insane. Like, I really think that they should have started all this stuff with Trump way earlier, and I think he should have been already rotting in prison by now for all the national security documents stuff. Like, that's just wild to me.
Yeah, I mean, I can see both sides of it though. I don't know how long these investigations take though, or what like the, how long for people to respond, because like it could be. On one end, you could say like, yeah, they should have been quicker. But on another end, like, imagine if they rush something and it's fucked, and it's like, why are you charging a former president who's running again with crimes and you don't have like enough for a solid indictment, right? So I could understand them like wanting to, cross their T's and dot their I's. But like, this stuff can't be ongoing during the election, right? This, like, at least like, the New York one is whatever. Stupid case, don't even give a The Georgia one has to be like figured out. I think the RICO shit, right?
Yes.
The classified documents one, that has to be figured out. Like that needs to be done. And then there was a second federal one, right? It was New York. Georgia was the RICO. The documents in Florida was the federal one.
I think it was No, it wasn't Jan 6 stuff. That's civil.
Wait. Oh no, it was. It was to defraud the American public of the vote.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, that one needs to be done. Like these can't be like these have to be done, and like we have to be like past appeals. I have no idea how the fuck we're gonna have ongoing elections with these cases out there, and I don't even know if we're gonna get the first. I don't know if we're ever gonna get through like a first ruling on any of these. Yeah, that's.
I think the only thing that's gonna go through is the Georgia RICO one, and I think everything else. Yeah, I think it's just a mess. It's a disaster. I think it needed to be brought faster. But I'm not a prosecutor, but just from an outsider's perspective, it just seems like insane that some guy's going to potentially be running or winning candidate for president while he has 70 open charges against him.
Yeah, that's insane. And so funny given Trump saying how many times, you shouldn't be allowed to run if you've got an open FBI investigation. And I was like, right, we're past investigating for you, motherfucker. We're on the indictment level. Yeah. Yeah, I have no idea. That's just wild. Yeah, I don't know how we have an election with these things hanging over us. That's
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the American justice system, I guess. It's slow, but it'll eventually get there.
Well,
hopefully.
yeah. But I mean, like, this is actually like a, like, time sensitive. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,